Good morning, YouTube and Trading Game. Happy Saturday. I wish I would have recorded this stream yesterday. It would have saved me the trouble having to make this video because it was just amazing as far as setting up a trading idea and then watching it play out during the day. These zones just really hit well, and it was great for everybody that was in the stream. But unfortunately, I didn't record it. I got a little piece of it at the beginning when I was going over the Firebird Trade Assistant tutorial. I talked a little bit about these zones and then cut the video off to keep the tutorial short. And then the rest of the day streamed and just watched these zones hit one after another. So I'm going to cover what I'm doing right now that's been working really well for me and just kind of give you something you can test for yourself. It's really easy to test, it's really easy to trade, and I've only been using it a couple weeks, and more so here recently, kind of refining my criteria for these zones. But it's just been amazing. They all hit yesterday, some of them multiple wins if I would have wanted to take them, and the day before I ran off 12 straight. So really good results so far with this, and I'm going to kind of explain why I think it's effective and how I'm trying to utilize it. So when I sit down at the beginning of the day, first of all, this comes from Pack's teaching, basically the zones, price expectations, things like that. It's price is fractal. People are trading this on the minute, the 15 second, the 5 second. For myself, I'm trying to see if I can be effective in the minute. I've got some ideas here, and I've learned some tips and tricks for trading the 15 second and the 5 second. I see it, but I don't want to be that glued to the screen. And I really would like the ability to set some limit orders and go about my day. And the way these zones hit, I have no problem putting a limit order out once I've identified them and, coming back and seeing what's happened. The win rate on them has been phenomenal recently. So, but you know how the market is. I'm not making any promises. I'm going to show you what I've seen here the last couple of days and what I traded and what I went through in the stream yesterday that a whole lot of you saw, and kind of go from there. So anyway, this isn't anything new. This is it's when you see it, you're going to think support and resistance. I'm looking at it as more or less seeing the bank's moves and applying that to these zones and picking out certain zones that just really hit, and we'll get into that. But so I've got the 12 minute, the 1 minute, and the 15 second here. What I do is I go back and I mark out all the 12 minute zones based on a valid high and a valid low, and I pull it across. And what I'm looking for are zones that were part of a big move, right? Lots of energy, huge push, breaks of market structure, all of that on the 12 minute. Okay, I get those on here, and then I filter it down to where price is, and I go in and I find the 1 minute zones. Okay, so for example, even on the 12 minute, I've drawn them across just for a kind of a bird's eye view of where I am in price. So marking structure on the 12 minute here. Got my these are mitigated zones down here, but I'm going to go back and do some replay and show you, or just show you how they hit. But these have already been mitigated. So this is what I was looking at when I came in yesterday morning. I drew out this zone, this zone, this zone, this zone. These were wins from the previous day, and I had this on the chart. At 8:30 in the morning or so, where were we here? Where's the open? In here somewhere. I hadn't traded any of this, and I wasn't interested in any of the 1 minute zones that were created in here. If you dial in, you zoom in. Oh, this is actually the 12 minute. If you go back here and zoom in on this, you can find 1 minute zones in here that you could have played, but to me, these aren't high probability zones. They may have hit here, but in other instances, they may or may not work. It's just kind of hit and miss. And that's why people maybe get into the 15 second and 5 second, because inside of these, they find some probable setups, good win rate setups, and they take those, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm looking for something a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more easy to just set a limit order and come back, at the end of the day and see how I did. And these zones work for that. So I call them the Omaha Zones, not for any specific reason, just to kind of differentiate them from just a standard 1 minute zone. I've got criteria for these that I'm using that to me make them the highest probability, the highest win rate 1 minute zones, and therefore the ones you can trust to, put a limit order of 50%, and more often than not you're going to win. You can't do that with every 1 minute zone. You've got to kind of look for the flip inside, and if you just do that to every 1 minute zone, you're not gonna be profitable most likely. So I've been watching MentaFX and Photon also, learning about some stuff with how banks, hedge funds, institutions, how they move price and the signatures that they leave and what they do, how they'll actually drive price up. They'll spend money to drive price up in order to get into a pool of orders that they can then buy and make more off of than what they spent to get into that pool. So to me, that now I understand a little bit about why they would sell to go up and buy to go down and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm looking for is just a signature that the banks were involved, right? That big money stepped in, and we know what that looks like. It's displacement, breaks the structure, things like that. So I combined that with the idea of these 1 minute zones and the 50%. And I had been trying to trade this a long time ago. Like, take this move right here, right? I was drawing out all the fair value gaps, right, from moves like this, and then expecting to try to hit back here somewhere, right? Like, I was expecting this fair value gap to hold for a bounce down here somewhere. And it just didn't really play out. I mean, here's a good example right here. If you would have got in right on this one, you'd have won. But as far as extending it out and expecting price to bounce off it again later, for any kind of a substantial move, it just doesn't happen regularly. And if it does, then it might be also tied to the order block and the move that generated, the origin of that move that generated the fair value gap. You can see right here the fair value gap held, but it also got up into this area of the origin of this zone before it started rejecting. It actually starts rejecting at 50%, and we'll go over that. But so couple criteria, pretty simple. Displacement, right? This makes this an A plus, zone right here. This huge push out of the zone. So this is a 12 minute in here, and what I'll do is we're on the 12 minute time frame right now. I will zoom down into the 1 minute and try to identify the 1 minute zones within those huge moves. So here you got this huge move. Here's a little zone down here. And then another high probability 1 minute zone for me. Something else I look for is the type of break of structure on the move. So if it takes, here's another one of the other criteria that makes it A plus. If a move comes out and it breaks its local structure, that's great. If it also breaks a previous structure, I call that just cream of the crop zone. Okay, a lot of them will break their structure, but they don't go high enough to break something previous. Like this one here, this broke this structure. It also broke this little structure here. Not really, yeah, there actually is maybe, I can't tell if there's a valid low there or not, but it's a swing point. So broke this swing, broke that swing, something I look for. And then extending them out, like this is, the origin of this move here is just a huge push. So when this comes back over, and we'll just kind of, I could do this in replay, but honestly, you can see in the candle structure, the way we're going to do this, that these 50% just hold, and there's no reason for me to go candle by candle and waste a lot of time. So what I've been doing is, I've been experimenting with either trying to take 5 points or covering the zone. Some of these zones are good size. That one is almost 30 points, right? So between seeing about taking 5 points, which works sometimes, but not every time, or covering the zone, I found that covering the zone is the way to go. So I just size up and size down depending on the size of the zone. I've got plenty of time to figure out my order, put my limit order in here, decide how many contracts I want to use, if I want to use micros or whatever, to make my risk acceptable for this size of a zone. And that's pretty much the way I'm going to play it. I've also looking for 15-second flips inside the zones. It does work sometimes, but a lot of times you miss a good piece of the zone waiting for that flip. So sometimes it'll come up over 50%, give you a flip, and you get a tighter stop and a bigger gain, but it's just not consistent. Sometimes it's right here, sometimes it's right here, sometimes it's right here, and it's impossible to know ahead of time and place a limit order, which is kind of what I'm wanting to do. So the 50% is really attractive for me. The way you had an Omaha zone, honestly, is quick reaction off the 50%, easy win. That's the only way I know how to explain it. When these zones hit, they just hit, they bounce, and a lot of times they bounce and they bounce and they bounce. These are really, really, really strong areas of supply and demand that will continue to support and reject price multiple times. Now, I haven't got to where have any hard data on how many times I can play these zones. Some zones work once, some of them work 5 times. I would love to collect more data to try to figure out, how many times do I get 2 trades out of it, right? Because that would be amazing if I could, rinse and repeat on the same zone rather than just taking the one and then, scrapping this zone, calling it mitigated and moving on. These particular zones, because of the origin and the move and the amount of money that it took to push the price out of here. In fact, this origin of this move breaks all kinds of structure. I mean, this is literally a market structure shift on a higher time frame as well. So if you find something like that, that's your zone. I mean, that's one you can count on to definitely deliver, a higher probability win rate. So we'll just kind of go through and look like this one, as we see, hit 50%, huge push out. And like I said, this is a 30-point zone. So 30 points, 60 points, 90 points, 120 points, 150 points worth of trades right here on this zone. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I need to do more back testing on it. It doesn't look like you can really predict the depth by the number of times it hits. This one dug deeper, etc. But then here it was just a tap and it took off. So I want to develop a trade plan around this that gets me into a couple of these maybe. And really, honestly, if I just had one trade off each one of these zones, there's generally enough in a day for me to make, all the money I want to make. So here is one right here. It's just a little baby 1 minute zone, but there's a high, there's a low, breaks, there's my zone. Okay. And then I look for price to come back, and when it taps it, you can see right here you got your tapped right here, went straight up, came back down. So this was an easy win. This was actually a trade I took the day before, just a small one. This one would have been just cover, with 5 points. 5 points is my goal. So if it's a 10-point zone or a 20-point zone and I have to fade 10 of it, then I might go to 5 micros to make it a 5, a 5-point hit, as if I was using a mini, whatever. And that was easy. I mean, I watched it come down, watched it immediately turn around and go back, and that was a win. So then, coming into trading yesterday, actually, these are some other winners from the previous day. Yeah, from Thursday. So I ended my trading week on Thursday because I made my goal in 3 days. And yesterday, I just mapped everything out and demoed it, but the results are the same. And so let's just look at the zones real quick. 1 minute or 12-minute higher time frame, and the ones that are nested in here are really, really good too. We're already expecting a flip in here somewhere. This might be the SNDR of the 12-minute, so this is why we get such a strong reaction out of this zone when it hits. And similar. Now, when I talk about the criteria of the zone, well, look at the move. I mean, this was like trying to catch a knife, right? It was just dropping, coming down hard. And this is just basically, there's a valid low, a valid high, It's a zone, valid low, valid high. This is a 15-second zone. If you dial, zoom down in, you can see it has the same characteristics, valid high, valid low, etc. And I knew that just by looking at it. You can tell it's got the low, high, lower low, and there's a zone in there. So I draw those out as well, expecting price to react off the 50%. I don't go any lower than 15 seconds right now, and it has to be part of the same criteria, part of the same type of moves with the same displacement. This is just a way for me to get an extra trade that didn't really fit the valid high, valid low criteria of a 1 minute zone, but there's still money on 15 second. So huge move, huge displacement, institutional involvement, footprint, signatures, all that is in this move right here. So then you go back and you pull those zones and just draw them across. Easy, easy, easy. Just pull them across. Pull them across. And then, let's see, was this Thursday? Yeah, this was Thursday. And then as you can see, price hits the 50%. Top of the zone's right here. Delivers the bottom of the zone. Goes right back up. Hits 50% again. Does not stop out. Delivers again. Gets back into the zone one more time, hits 50%, and delivers finally out of the zone. So 3 wins in that one. Nice, obvious, powerful zone. What do you think happens when it gets up here? You think that's going to be a good trade? I mean, that as it steps back up through these moves, every one of these is going to deliver a nice rejection because for whatever reason, as far as orders, order flow, sitting orders, all that stuff, when it hits this, there's reaction. So, and then following this move down, down. This was still Thursday. So Friday, I come in, and these were the end of the day trades on Thursday. These are the last few I took. I didn't take all these. I took probably the ones down here in the 1 minute. Yeah, I remember this one right here. It dropped right into 50% and just shot right out. It was easy money. But I'm also observing, do the 12-minute zones deliver in the same way, the same zones, the same criteria? Do they give that same kind of impact? Because there's some money in there in those 12-minute zones because they can be, sizable. And if they deliver the same kind of win rate, I'm going to be all over that. So here we go, 50% respected, immediately pushed out. And then it came back, gave an easy, another 1 hour trade. If you cover the bottom of that zone, would be right here. This zone is 56 points. So if you covered half of it, you'd be looking at 28 points. 28 points times 20 is good money for a mini, or, if you got micros. But anyway, so here's a 1 minute zone kind of nested into the 12-minute zone. You call it basically the origin of that 12-minute zone part of it. And when it comes down here and hits 50%, shoots right out, gives you the win. I don't know. I don't think this one would be the same because it came from here. Yeah, I can't tell on that. Let me pull that out of there. So this would be the win on that one right there. I think I saw that wick going back and forth, but most likely it came here, went up, came down, went up, and then took the bottom of the zone out. So, and like I said, this is all I'm looking for. If I get the first hit on the zone and it's a winner, I'm no problem moving on, but I want to get some data on what I can expect possibly from trying to take some more cracks at it. Obviously, once it mitigates it, then it comes all the way through the zone. You're not looking for another one. But all right, so coming into the stream yesterday, this is kind of what I was looking at right here. This was already done. Didn't have any of this on the screen. Got some zones below me just in case we get down there. And I think there's like a huge news wick or something back here somewhere. maybe if I find it look quick. There was something that stopped me from looking much deeper. Maybe it was right here. Yeah, so this wick, you know, took out all of that. All that's mitigated down to here, so didn't really look for anything below that. All right, so then in the stream yesterday, we just kind of watched and we talked about price a little bit, and these were the, you know, these were the zones I was looking for. So stream probably started streaming here. I just drew this one out to show the reaction for this video here, since I had kind of grouped it in with these types of moves within this bigger move. I expect the same kind of reaction, even though this is a little bit smaller time frame. The mechanics are the same within it. So it delivered, you know, once, twice, 3 times, 4 if you count the wick through. And I do take these on. If it's the first push through and it wicks through, I'll accept the stop out. And if it closes back inside the zone, I get back in and I put my stop right above the wick. And that's very successful. So you'll find that a lot, that if it wicks through the zone and closes inside the zone, you can get a real low risk trade back in and get all that back and then some. So, all right, so we're watching price and it, you know, comes up, hits the 50, gives us a win, comes out, comes back in, hits the 50, gives us a win. Comes up, hits the 50, eventually gives us the win. Moves into the next zone, hits 50, gives us a win. Hits 50 again, gives us a win. Hits 50 again, and if you cover the zone, gave another win. So really, really good sign that it was an effective zone, you know, when it does that. Now, like I say, this is just as good of a zone. It didn't do that, but if I took the second trade on some of these, I would have been up 1, 2, 3, and I would have lost one here. I would have still been up maybe 2R or something. Well, it never really would have given me the opportunity. So it looks like once it went through. Now, if I would have tried to take another trade here on this 50%, I would have got stopped out. So anyway, got to find out how that works as far as how often that wins. So that's about it. These zones are easy to find. You just look for a huge move, right? You look for a huge dump, a huge rally, news candles, you know, things like that. Anywhere where there's a huge push out of the zone, draw that across, back test it, go look at it, see how many times, you know, what kind of trades you could have got out of it. And for me, ideally, I could have set a market order or a limit order on any of these, and I would have just had, you know, 4 winning trades at the end of the day if I would only took one. Actually, this was previous day. But every zone I've shown you here was a winner. And there's plenty here that I probably didn't draw as well. I knew, so during price action yesterday, as we were coming up through here, I was drawing out zones, internal zones here, after these were mitigated, using this move here to then find what looked like good energetic moves, like right here. Never did validate though. There was one specifically that I used that broke a couple layers of structure. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't see it now. The ones internal, I'm calling these internal because it's current price action. The ones I was playing were previous days price action that I drew across. If there's a really nice move in the current price action and it does everything, you know, that I'm wanting it to do, I guess like maybe this one right here, I think I would have drawn out because it took its local structure and then it also took the higher structure. So you do have a valid high here. You get a valid low here. It's closed above. So this is, you know, this is a valid zone, and it displacement, took out local and previous structure, so that would have been a pull across for, you know, the next day. Something like that, I guess. Yeah, I'm interested in that. So we draw that across, call it a 1 minute zone, and then when I come back next week to trade, I will look at, you know, all the zones above and below. Everything that's mitigated, I erase. I just get rid of them. Those won't be on the charts anymore. All this will be gone. I'll go through and see if there's anything in here that I want to try to use, and then I'll watch, you know, if I'm going to trade Asia or London, you know, I'll be looking for this to get hit. This was just amazing right here, what we were seeing with the rejection off of this zone right here being this close to the 12-minute high. So kind of like PAC's, you know, price expectations, trade up to it, fail, fall away, weak lows get ran, things like that. All that stuff played out just perfectly. So when you mix all that together and use these zones, you can kind of trade into them and trade out of them. Be like, you know, I mean, it makes sense. So try to, you know, raise the opportunities to catch these trades. So that's about it. If you have any questions, hit me up in the Discord, and I'll plan to start streaming this, you know, more as my schedule allows. Yesterday was great. I went back to, you know, I was on there I did my normal AM and PM session with an hour in between, and spent hours just going through taking trades and explaining the logic of what I was seeing. So seems like that's pretty popular. I'm going to try to get back to it at least a couple days a week, and we'll work with this right here. And always welcome for your suggestions and input. Help me get better. That's what it's all about. So, all right, until next time, you guys have a great day.